webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. Always good to see high numbers joining us for our webinars. My name is James Nevitz. I'm co-chair of ORN and Senior Public Access and Recreation Advisor for the Ministry of Defence. Today's webinar is very much a warm-up, a taster for the forthcoming ORN annual conference. This year in June, we'll be looking at outdoor recreation as a catalyst for regenerative tourism, and we've got 4 excellent speakers to get you inspired and excited for what's coming at the event. If you haven't booked your tickets, you'll find all the conference and booking information you'll need on the new ORN website, which you can quickly access using the QR code you can see there just in the corner of your screen. So please do check it out after the webinar and get your tickets booked to avoid disappointment. We've a packed hour, so just for some initial housekeeping, to make you aware, the webinar is being recorded for post-event use. I think cameras and mics may have been disabled, but can you just ensure your mics and cameras are turned off during the presentations so our speakers are not distracted? If you've got any questions that you'd like to raise, please use the chat bar, and if the time is permitting, we'll see if we can raise them with the relative speakers. As I say, we've got 2 excellent presentations coming up with lots to take in. So to help you enjoy the content, notes will be made available as well after the webinar, excuse me. So this morning we're joined by 4 excellent speakers. We've given us 2 presentations. First off, we will be having Dr. Nicholas Papas, Director of the Centre for Research in Tourism Excellence at the University of Sunderland. Nicholas will also be joining us as our keynote speaker at the June ORN conference. So his presentation is very much going to give us a taster of his keynote presentation, looking at the current trends and future development of regenerative tourism. This will be followed by a joint presentation from Munster Technological University, given to us by Mary Rose Stafford, Dr. Ashleen Ward, and Fiona Scott Hayward. This presentation will provide an introduction to understanding regenerative tourism, a brief overview of their circular economy for regenerative tourism group and work, practical examples of businesses and communities taking a regenerative approach to tourism, and signposting you all to further resources and information. As mentioned, our first speaker is Dr. Nicholas Papas. Nicholas is a Professor of Tourism Development and Crisis Management and the Director of the Centre for Research in Tourism Excellence at the University of Sunderland. He is also the co-director of the International Research Association of Athena, the Association of Tourism, Hospitality and Events Networks in Academia. Nicholas has 20 years of experience in the tourism and hospitality industry and has more than 100 publications in academic journals and conferences. To top it off, he is also an associate editor in Event Management Journal and the Frontiers of Sustainable Tourism Journal. Nicholas, thank you so much for squeezing us into your busy schedule this morning, and I hope I can hand over to you this morning to give us your presentation.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. I'm Nicholas Papas, and I work at the University of Sunderland as a professor. And let's kickstart with a small part of my presentation that I'm about to deliver at the annual ORN conference, related with regenerative tourism and the future development and current trends as far as it concerns tourism and tourism regeneration. Before we get to regenerative tourism, we need to understand that the changes that actually have a substantial impact in the tourism and hospitality industry. The first thing is the demographic shifts. As we already know from the data we collect on an annual basis, we have an aging population. And since we have an aging population, it means that more and more people in older ages actually participate in tourism. This means that their trends, their habits, their consumption preferences are changing all the time, and also means that the industry needs to adapt to this aging population and serve their needs. We also have the silver tourists, as we call them, meaning tourists over 50, 55 years old. that have special needs, and considering people over 65, 70 years old, they also have some, usually have some health issues and dietary preferences that we also need to consider when building a tourist product. So the aging population is one of the fundamental aspects that we need to consider and directly impact the tourism and hospitality industry. The second aspect is the exponential development of technology and technological aspects. We all see nowadays the development of AI, of artificial intelligence, and what we currently consider as a given a couple of decades ago, it was not considered as a given or not even existed. For example, if we now go to a hotel, a given is that we're going to have an internet connection. Before 1993, there was no internet. So internet changed everything. Social media from 2001 onwards also changed the aspects of destination image or tourist package image and so forth. Another aspect is the changing working patterns. Especially after COVID-19, we've seen several people selecting working from home or working distantly. So actually nowadays we have a substantial amount of population that are digital nomads as far as it concerns their working patterns. And those people can go for tourism and work from their tourism or leisure or business, whatever they do in their travel. However, even if work became more flexible, it's more and more time pressure. Most of the people, especially in digital nomads, continue working during weekends or even bank holidays. So actually, there is a very high value for money as far as it concerns tourism and hospitality products and services related with the time that they want to spend in a specific destination or in a specific activity. We also have an exponential increase of crises and disasters that directly affect tourism and hospitality industry. As we already know, tourism and hospitality industry is exceptionally susceptible to liquidity aspects and to crises and disasters. So this exponential increase, predominantly based on the environmental change and the environmental degradation, actually changes the whole landscape in the tourism and hospitality industry. Finally, we have the changing models of consumption in the travel and hospitality industry because of the aging population, because of the technology, because of the working patterns and the time pressure. And generally, tourism does not operate as it got used to operate 20 or 30 years ago. Now we need to focus on tailored tourist packages, on tailored tourist offers, and cover personalized needs because people become more and more sophisticated and more demanding as far as it concerns on what they want to consume and what they want to have in the travel and tourism. So we have those behavioral shifts in travel and tourism, like tighter budgets and rise of value-oriented travel. It's the value of money, that value for money, as I've already mentioned. The leisure versus corporate travel budgets, the winning big with personalization and personalized coverage of needs and wants of people. And obviously, it's a rising demand for sustainable travel because tourists right now become more and more sophisticated, and especially younger generations, not only, but especially younger generations demand to have a more sustainable way of travel, a more sustainable way of tourism. In this part, we also start talking about regenerative tourism. So the current and future lines of development in tourism, the first one is for tourism to become more efficient, not only economically, but also socially and environmentally, in order to get this sustainable aspect of tourism. So we need to improve the quality of the environment, the quality of the society. Somebody goes to a specific destination, because we need to have in mind that when a tourist buys a specific tourist product or a tourist service, it does not only buy the travel and the accommodation infrastructure, it also buys the man-made and natural environment of the destination is about to visit. So tourism becomes more and more environmentally aware, and because of this environmental degradation and the climate change, people demand more and more sustainable tourism products. So tourism also allows greater participation as far as it concerns the decision making. We talk about community participation, we talk about participatory democracy, and those aspects need to be respected when we plan and develop tourism in a specific destination, and not only in a destination level, but also in an enterprising level. So tourism needs to be slowed down as far as it concerns the numbers visiting a specific destination, in order to also avoid aspects like, for example, over tourism that several very famous destinations actually face, like Venice, like Barcelona, like Athens, like Milan, and so forth. And tourism also needs to be further connected with the society and not to disrupt the social cohesion of a specific destination, meaning that tourism also needs to become more authentic. Tourism needs to become needs to be based more in the roots of social sustainability and social cohesion, meaning that tourism needs to get a more humane perspective, because this is the trend and the future lines of development of tourism, because this is what the consumers demand, and this is on what the consumers are more than willing to pay money to say something like this. So when we talk about tourism, we need to have the sustainability triangle in our minds. So we actually talk about environmental protection of both man-made and natural environment. We talk about economic development, and we also talk about social cohesion. So the environment, the economy, and the society need to be at the forefront on how we develop tourism, and as a next step, how this sustainable triangle, this sustainability triangle and sustainable development can lead to regenerative tourism. So in order to progress to regenerative tourism, we need to first know how to establish sustainable development and sustainable tourism. And this is also some aspects that we are going to discuss during the annual ORN conference, and specific trends and key principles and key issues of regenerative tourism. So I hope I'm going to see you during the ORN conference in June, and further have the ability to discuss those aspects. Thank you very much for listening. Just a short part of my presentation that I'm going to deliver during the ORN conference. And if you have any questions, please let me know, and I will be more than happy to answer them.
Fantastic, Nicholas. Thank you ever so much. Very immensely interesting. A lot covered in a very short space of time. Very succinctly. We really appreciate you giving us your time. Apologies for not stepping in earlier, just to double check with regards to slides. But as I say, it's not impacted the presentation at all. I think you really did very eloquently cover an awful lot there. So thank you ever so much. Great stuff. Okay. That was the first presentation of the day. So we're going to move on to our joint presentation from Munster Technological University. We are lucky enough to have three presenters for us today. Mary Rose Stafford, Executive Head of the School of Business, Computing and Humanities, is with us. Mary Rose gained 15 years of international hotel management experience working in London, New York, Dublin and Kerry, before moving to work in third level education in 2003. She's co-author of 2 books and numerous academic papers, and was appointed to the board of Vulture Island, the National Tourism Development Authority, by the Ministry of Tourism 2013 to 2017. Mary Rose is actively involved in tourism development, both nationally and internationally, and amongst other things, currently leads an EU project on the circular economy for regenerative tourism. We also have Dr. Ashleen Ward, Senior Lecturer in the University's Department of Tourism and Hospitality, and Lead Academic Researcher in the Circular Economy for Regenerative Tourism Research Unit. Ashleen has extensive expertise in the areas of sustainable and regenerative tourism, consumer behaviour, and marketing in the field of tourism. She has experience in the development and teaching of undergraduate and postgrad tourism programmes within the university, as well as experience of various EU projects. And finally, we have Fiona Scott-Hayward, Senior Researcher in Circular Economy, Education, Innovation and Ecosystem Development. Fiona works in the Circular Economy for Regenerative Tourism Research Team on interdisciplinary projects in circular economy, regenerative tourism and digital skills. Fiona's work involves business support and development and delivery of training courses for the tourism businesses and those diversifying into tourism in the areas of circular economy, sustainability and regenerative tourism. Thank you all for joining us and giving us your time this morning. Quite a mouthful for me there. Sorry for tripping over some of those words. But thank you ever so much for giving us your time. And I will hand over to you to give us your presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, James. So I'll kick off the presentation here this morning, just to give you a little bit of background around our research, and then I'll hand over to Aisling, who will give you a brief understanding of regenerative tourism, building on what Nicholas has just said, and then Fiona will give you some real live examples of businesses that have implemented regenerative practices. So moving on there, just very briefly, Munster Technological University, we're located in the southwest of Ireland. We have 6 campuses across the region, and Munster, you may have heard of the Munster Rugby Club, so that would be a familiar term for you. So Munster Technological University, we're a new university. We were only established in the last 4 years. But the reason why we started researching regenerative tourism really came out of COVID, and we established a research group back in January 2022 when travel stopped, and we all felt that, when tourism reemerges, it'll have to be something very different. So we have a team behind us in Munster Technological University, and we're very much looking at, we spend time talking about regenerative tourism and this holistic approach to tourism. And we said there's a lot of research out there, or emerging research, but we said there's not a lot of actual practical examples for us to draw on. So that's what we've spent our time doing over the last number of years. So we very much in our research group look at advancing a regenerative approach to tourism development. And so under that, we provide education, we provide applied research through projects like that we're going to speak about later on. We've had some with Scotland, we've had some across Europe. We also engage with industry where we try to implement regenerative practices, and then we monitor them, we research them, and then we share our learnings, which we're going to do here today. And we're also represented on numerous national and international tourism bodies. So I'll hand you over to Aisling, and she'll give you our understanding of regenerative tourism, because it is emerging and we're still learning from it, and that's what makes it really interesting for us. So I hope you enjoy this. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So just to start, really, I suppose regenerative tourism, as Mary Rose was talking about, is something that's really emerging over the last few years, and there's very much a focus now on what it is and how can we implement a regenerative approach to tourism. And really what the whole underpinning of regenerative tourism is this idea of a mindset shift, where you're considering tourism not as an industry as such, but as part of a natural system where there is stakeholder collaboration and the community becomes part of the visitor experience. So in other words, the community and nature should have a voice in the development of tourism. It's about slowing down the visitor experience and allowing for this authentic engagement with the culture, the heritage, nature, and the people of the place that is being visited. So in its simplest form, regenerative tourism is about leaving a place better than before the visit. So how does regenerative tourism differ from that of sustainable tourism? So there is a kind of an emerging belief that sustainability will not be enough in terms of slowing down climate change, and more needs to be done to kind of restore what is lost. However, in saying that, sustainability is a really important step towards a regenerative approach. So what really needs to be considered in this context is a rebalance of tourism and maybe a shift away from the traditional kind of measurements of tourism success, which tended to be around the number of visitors to a destination and the value of those visitors in terms of contribution to GDP and so on. And very little was in consideration of the community that was being impacted or the destination that was being impacted. And as Nicholas mentioned, you know, there are some really prominent examples of popular tourism destinations where over-tourism is becoming a massive issue, and there's a backlash from communities and residents towards tourism within these destinations. And even within the own place, the places in which all of you are operating, there are probably peak periods of tourism demand where there are issues with traffic, with parking, with being able to afford housing, and so on. So the idea of regeneration is more about this idea of thinking about our role within the tourism industry and how we can regenerate the destination in which we're promoting and so on. So in this slide, you can see the kind of the progression of tourism thinking in terms of what's emerging from the literature. So on one end of the spectrum, you have what is known as conventional or mass tourism. And this is defined by a kind of a degenerating approach to tourism, where it's very much based on the industrial design or the mechanistic design. And it is about the individual parts of the industry. Right in the middle then, we have sustainable tourism, and this is about maintaining the status quo and ensuring that no further damage is caused. And this is a really important part of the development of tourism, that we can sustain what we have. But then you move on towards regeneration. And regenerative tourism then is about making a place better than before. It does require a mindset shift. It does look at how this can be done, and I'll give you some examples, and Fiona will follow up on this as well. But in its simplest form, looking at the entire system, the place in which the tourism is being offered, the community, nature, the other businesses, contributing towards the social impact of a destination as well. So just to put this in a little bit of context from a business perspective, what needs to be done to ensure that, you know, communities and visitors, residents, and the environment within the place can thrive. So some examples are things like, you know, good quality employment opportunities. So this might be being able to provide year-round employment, and this can be achieved sometimes through the possibility of extending the season, looking at ways in which you can rebalance visitors from one destination to another destination. So it's about a rebalance across time and across places as well. Supporting local producers and suppliers, developing a kind of a circular approach, telling the story of your producers, your food producers, where your food is sourced, you know, your crafts and your souvenirs and everything else that's being offered within your business. Actively engaging as well in environmental preservation as a business, but also maybe empowering your visitors to do the same, providing them with opportunities to learn about the local environment and its uniqueness, but also to maybe give something back and participate in a really positive way within your environment as well. At a destination level, then, there are lots of destinations that are starting to adopt regenerative models of tourism and implementing and embedding this approach into their strategies and their policies. And I'm just going to run through three very different examples of how a regenerative approach to tourism is being adopted. So in New Zealand, they have introduced a range of different strategies to incorporate this concept of regenerative tourism. So the first one is they provide a 12-week program for their businesses within the region to help them to work towards zero carbon and towards a regenerative future. So achieving sustainability first and then progressing beyond that. So that's why we talk about regenerative tourism as a journey or an approach and not an end destination. They also incorporate the residents in their strategy as well by promoting things like low carbon transport for visitors and also for locals. They have a policy within some of their cities within the region towards the elimination of single-use plastics. And also it's really grounded in the Maori culture. So Nicola spoke about authenticity in tourism. And really the whole communication around the destination, the Bay of Plenty, is around this Maori culture and heritage and providing a unique experience for visitors to learn more. Visit Flanders' approach is slightly different then. In developing their Travel to Tomorrow strategy, they conducted and they continue to conduct these resident sentiment surveys. So they really bring the residents of the communities within the regions along with them in terms of tourism development. And the whole idea behind that is that the residents then can become ambassadors for the destination to a certain extent, and that they then get to engage with visitors to share what they love about their place with the visitors at different times of the year and so on. And then also Hawaii is another really good example, and their focus is about balancing the economics of tourism with the well-being of their communities, the natural resources and the culture as well. So really focusing on visitors who want to have a positive impact on the destination and are mindful and respect the destination, respect the culture, their interaction with residents, the environment, and the value and respect for the Hawaiian culture as well. And really it's moving from a volume-based indicators towards value-based indicators within a destination. So the last thing I want to finish up on here is actually to give an example of a case study that we worked on with a local community project. So Killarney Town is based in Kerry, and it's one of the busiest tourism towns in Ireland. And back in 2023, they were doing a cleanup of the Killarney National Park, and it's also a UNESCO biosphere. And what they noted was the vast majority of the rubbish there were coffee cups, single-use coffee cups. And this led to the whole community of businesses coming together to eliminate single-use coffee cups within their premises within the town. So it started off with 50 businesses, and many of these were restaurants, coffee shops, and hotels. It now has 70 businesses who have eliminated the single-use coffee cups within their facilities. Now, it did come with some teething problems, but much of this has been kind of teased out already. So we did a range of research activities about this project to try to come up with a blueprint for other places to follow as well. So our colleagues here in MTU conducted waste categorization surveys. So they compared the level of waste in the bins in Killarney with that of other tourism towns in the area. And what they noticed was that 50% less coffee cups were in the Killarney bins in comparison to some of the other tourism towns, and 60% less coffee cup litter was identified in the roadside, on the roadsides and in the national parks and so on. So from an environmental perspective, it was a huge benefit in that kind of context. But also there was unexpected social benefits in terms of the shift in behaviour of visitors and residents to the town. So residents in particular, after the teething in period, became much more in tune with bringing their own coffee cups, or else if they forgot their coffee cup, they tended to sit down and drink their coffee and actually stop for a minute and maybe have a conversation with someone. So from that perspective, it led to a big change in behaviour and attitudes towards environmental issues as well. So it was just a really good positive outcome of a project and a real sense of pride in the destination as well. So I'm just going to pass you over to Fiona now, who's going to talk about our EU project and some examples from that also.
Thanks, Aisling. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, so I suppose Aisling and Nicholas as well, they've gone through a lot of the theory and the background around regenerative tourism, and the frameworks tend to be very much based at destination level and maybe a little bit abstract. So the CE4RT project was a project that we started in 2023, I think, and finished it this year. It was an EU co-funded project, so it was funded through ESMEA, and it covered 5 countries: Finland, Iceland, Ireland, Poland, and the Netherlands. There were 7 partners across those countries, and we looked at 80 tourism businesses. And the big thing was, because the concept of regenerative tourism was so abstract and so destination based, that we had to come up with a way that the businesses themselves could look at themselves and regenerative tourism and figure out what they needed to do. So let's go to the next slide. So this framework is the framework that we developed for the businesses to be able to consider regenerative tourism. So we divided it into 5 themes, which you can see there. So we have championing local places, and that included both the nature, the physical, natural environment of the place, but also the culture and heritage, benefiting host communities, tackling climate action, empowering visitors, which, as Aisling mentioned just now, is all around getting the visitors' behavior to align more with the values of your place, the values of your community, and to get them to act more responsibly, both in the destination and then when they go home. And the last part there is long-term sustainability and profitability. So that really important that the businesses can continue to make money and survive, not necessarily grow, because not all businesses want to grow in a huge way, but that they can still be there in the next 5 or 10 years or beyond. So what we did to help the businesses with these 5 themes in the framework, we broke them each theme down, and we had a measurement tool, a survey that they completed 3 times during the project. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the items on the survey, but just a few tasters to give you an idea of the things that sparked them to ask questions about their own businesses and maybe made them realize what they were already doing and then where the gaps were and what they needed to focus on. So the first one we found generally the businesses were really good at, which was championing their local place. So a lot of the businesses we were dealing with were very small, only a few people, a handful of staff, and they were very devoted and connected with their local places. So contributing to the protection and environment in their area, participating in nature conservation, but also letting visitors know about what was going on and letting visitors know about the biodiversity that they might not be aware of in a particular place. And then in terms of culture and heritage, really knowing what distinguishes their place from anywhere else. And then being able to use those authentic stories to connect the visitor to the place. In terms of local community then, things like promoting local products and services, providing inclusive and accessible workplaces and really supporting the well-being of employees, and prioritizing where possible employment of people living in the area, so that you're employing people in the area, they're spending in the area, they're living in the area, that it's a circular process. The climate action one we found really depended on the country. So some countries were really far ahead with this and others really struggled. So here in Ireland, the small businesses actually really struggled with this because a lot of the support that was available was for larger businesses, whereas countries like maybe Iceland and Finland, who have much more developed environmental action plans for businesses and maybe have geothermal and more renewable energy available to them, found it a bit easier. So instead of moving the businesses straight into calculating their carbon footprint, we asked them just to think about their data. Do they know how much electricity they're using? Did they know what a kilowatt hour was? Where does their waste go? Who collects their waste? Do they know what the breakdown of their waste was between food waste, normal black bins and recycling? Water consumption again, have they got a water meter? All those type of things were the things that we looked at as a stepping stones on climate action area. The empowering visitors one, so to come back to that, I think that's one of the ones that the businesses struggled a lot with and maybe didn't realize how much storytelling was so important. So Aisling mentioned there, how you can really encourage the visitors to be more responsible and how to get them really involved with what's going on both with the community and with the natural environment of your place. So the questions we asked the businesses were things around, are they communicating the special value that the visit brings to the place and to the community, to their visitors? Are they showing visitors what the sustainable choices are? So are they showcasing local transport? Are they explaining to people, well, such and such a place is only a few miles up the road. These are the options on how to get there if you don't have a car. Supporting local social or environmental projects. So if there are, bird counts, seal counts, beach cleanups, anything going on in the local area, maybe there's local festivals, really encouraging the visitors to take part in those. And then the last one then is long-term sustainability and profitability. So the picture there in the corner is a hotel just outside Tralee, the Ballygarry Hotel. I just took that picture off their website, their social media there the other day. They just had a well-being walk for their staff. They just took a morning off, had their staff. They have a sort of an integrated water treatment system, wetlands behind the hotel. They went for a little walk through. The staff just got to connect with each other, take a few moments out of the day, and maybe see the hotel from the visitor's perspective. So things like that are really important for staff retention, showing the staff that you care about them, keeping that staff on a longer basis. Having a business plan that spans at least 3 years for small businesses, this can be a huge challenge, but that's really important for long-term sustainability. Collecting feedback from your visitors and using that, and then trying to increase the length of stay of your visitors. So a few good practices that we just wanted to highlight today that came out of the project. So the first one here was Muckross Creameries. On the left, you can see the pictures here. So this is the dairy farm. It's based just outside Killarney here in County Kerry. And they have a family farm, a dairy farm that produce ice cream. And they had always wondered what to do with their skim milk. So that was always their waste product. And when they looked at circular economy, they identified that as the big bugbear, and they couldn't figure out what to do with it. They had tried making yogurt, they tried making a few other, skim milk products. Nothing really worked. So we went on a what we called a workshop on wheels to Iceland last April, where we took the businesses from all 5 countries and did a knowledge exchange visit. And while we were there, we visited a farm just by chance, which happened to be a dairy farm. It also had accommodation and horses. It also made ice cream. And then they made skyr. So this skyr, some of you are probably very familiar with it. It's a sort of an Icelandic set yogurt, and it's made using skim milk. So Catherine and John got inspired by this, and inspired by the way the farm in Iceland was explaining this to their visitors and was really selling the story of how this had come about and the history of skyr in Iceland. They went back, they worked with their sustainability coach that they had through the project, who was actually a food business coach. And several batches later, they are now actually selling into a hotel in Killarney to serve their breakfasts. The example on the right there is completely different. So this is a brewery, Browar Dukla in Poland, and the bottles there, the beer bottles there, the images on there, these are those very iconic, fantastical images that they use on their beer bottles and have always done. That's part of their selling point. Now, they were over in Ireland with us in November. We had a regenerative tourism conference here in Dingle. And one of the things they did while they were in Ireland was visit breweries and distilleries and try to see what everyone was doing in Ireland. And one of the things that really stood out for them was the storytelling. So they went back, and the images you can see on the right there are a comic book. So they've designed this comic book that takes the fantasy sort of figures from their beer bottles and the region, the local area, the history and culture of the local area, and sort of blends the two into this comic that really makes the visitors feel part of the local community and also brings the community involved in what the brewery is actually doing. And then the final one here is another sort of example of innovation in circular economy. So Elding Whale Watching is based in Iceland. And when they were on the project, what they were looking at was green procurement and their souvenir shop, and really struggling to think about souvenirs that weren't just made of plastic or imported from Asia, but something that reflected more their values. So they have collaborated with a local textile manufacturer, a small company. I think it's just 2 women who run this company. And what they're doing is they're taking their old flotation suits, life jackets, the fleeces that the staff wear on the whale watching boats, and they're repurposing them, as you can see there, into souvenir items for their shop. So pencil cases, bags, even gloves, all, you know, with the shape of whales or fins, as something then to sell in the shop and really get the people talking about their ethos. So they're just a few examples. We could go on all day with examples from the amazing businesses that we've worked with. But you'll get a copy of all these slides. So the first link there will take you to the digital toolkit from that project. So you can see case studies there, video interviews with the businesses. Some of their sustainability action plans are there. The template for regenerative tourism and the survey questions are all there if anyone wants to have a look at that for their own business or their own destination. And then in terms of teaching, we're working at the moment with a cohort on a micro-credential called Regenerative Tourism for SMEs. It's a mixture of SMEs and actually maybe tourism officers and tourism activators. It's completely online, so completely international, the intake, and we'll be running another one in autumn 2025. So if you feel like taking a little bit further, that's a really nice way to just jump in and do a short 10-credit module on regenerative tourism. The link after that then is for our masters. We run a master's in regenerative tourism, which again is fully online. It can be broken down and you can run through it by semester. So you can do the certificate in semester 1, continue on in semester 2 to do your diploma. And then if you want to do the full master's, the 3rd semester is this in-depth applied research project. So again, we've got a cohort running through that at the moment. They're in semester 2. They'll be finishing after the summer. And I think the next intake we'll probably take will be January 26. So if you're interested in that, just drop us a line and we can give you some more information. A couple of other projects there, I've just popped links in there that we're working on. The first one is digital innovation for tourism micro enterprises. I suppose the idea behind that is that tourism businesses, especially micro businesses, are very under-resourced in terms of time, expertise, and money compared to bigger businesses. And it's how can we support them to provide a more resilient tourism ecosystem? And then the second one has only just begun. So Aisling and Mary Rose will be working later this month with colleagues from all around Northern Europe in Return, which is looking at how you can take tourism revenue and transfer it to support regenerative tourism and climate resilience. So keep in touch, follow us on LinkedIn. Our Circular Economy for Regenerative Tourism page is linked there, or we all have individual pages as well. And you can feel free to email any of us directly there with any questions you have. So I'll stop sharing and hand back to you, James.
Fiona, thank you. Mary Rose, Aisling as well. Thank you ever so much. That was an excellent presentation. And it's a new topic for me. Sustainable tourism, for sure, I'm familiar with that term, but regenerative tourism is absolutely, I confess, a new topic for me. And I think with the help of Nicholas as well, you've expertly given us a fantastic introduction to the breadth of what's covered and the exciting areas that you cover as well, and in terms of not just large scale, covering lots of various countries, etc., but all right down to small scale projects and what can be achieved by individual businesses. And I think if you can provide examples that include beer and ice cream, I am definitely all for it. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you ever so much. We are running short on time, unfortunately, and I have questions, and I'm sure many of you do as well. But I think what we will do is, because we're running short on time, I would say do use those contact details that have just been provided on the screen and will be provided after the webinar to get in touch with any specific questions. I think we've absolutely whetted your appetite for the June conference. So bring those questions to the conference as well. And there'll be a real opportunity for some conversation, discussion, I'm sure. So yeah, it goes without saying, thank you to all our speakers for giving us your time this morning. Absolutely excellent. It's just scratched the surface, as I've said, on a huge and diverse topic. So I hope you'll feel inspired and eager to join us for more. As mentioned, the conference theme is Outdoor Recreation as a Catalyst for Regenerative Tourism, and will be held on the 17th and 18th of June at the Sill in Northumberland National Park. The aim is to bring the outdoor recreation and tourism sectors together to explore how outdoor recreation can drive regenerative tourism and establish key principles and best practices. The event is there to align with the themes that have come about in our new 25 to 28 ORN action plan. Accommodation, just to make your accommodation for the conference is available on site very conveniently at the YHA, but I understand it is filling up fast, so do book quickly to avoid any disappointments. I would say if you've got any questions about the conference, Elizabeth and Jane contact details are online, so if you've got any questions, please do get in contact and we can allay any concerns or queries. Please do use the QR code you can see on the screen there to find out more. Where are we? Oh, of course, yeah. And you can just see in the bottom left-hand screen there. I'm very pleased to say the nominations are now open. I have been open for a little while, I believe, for the 2025 ORN Success Awards, giving us a chance to shine a spotlight on the outstanding work happening across the outdoor sector. The June conference will be our second annual ORN Awards. It was a fantastic event last year. It really did put the icing on the cake at last year's conference. So it's a fantastic occasion. I want to encourage you all to nominate a project, organisation or a person so we can celebrate their contributions and success. And more details about how we go about nominating and the categories relevant to the nominations are all online. Just to give you a bit of a taster as to what's going on in the conference, we've heard already from our keynote speaker from day one, Dr. Papas. He'll be bringing his slides. Apologies again, Nicholas, for not interrupting you sooner, so we could have seen all of your slides, but you were doing such a fantastic job.
Thank you.
To see him in person and to throw questions at him, put him on the spot, he'll be there on day one to open the conference, which will be fantastic. Thank you again, Nicholas, for giving us your time. And then we've got a packed couple of days, which will include not just keynote speakers, but an opportunity to get out on the ground and see regenerative tourism action from experts in the local area. Yeah, as you can see, workshops, transport will be provided, and some excellent food, I'm sure. Yep, as you can see, we've got a visit to Hadrian's Wall, Homesteads Fort, where on-site experts and will be giving us guided tours and giving us a real introduction as to what is going on the ground. An opportunity to discuss some best practice. So, as I say, if you haven't booked your tickets, please do scan the details there, scan the QR code, get online, find all the information, of which there is lots, and book your tickets to avoid any further disappointments. Thanks to you again. Thanks to you all for all our speakers for taking the time and giving us a fantastic set of presentations. Thanks to you all, of course, for logging on and giving us your time this morning. It wouldn't be a webinar without your attendance, so thank you ever so much. And we look forward to seeing you in the June conference. Thank you. Thank you.